Christian growth and maturity are usually preceded by a season of training. You don't just grow into maturity just like that. There is a season of training. Galatians 4 verse 2 says, "But is under guardians and stewards until the time appointed by the Father." So though the heir is destined to inherit everything, but there is a necessary season of supervision and shaping where Paul speaks of people like guardians and stewards. These are people who oversee the growth of the child and also the development until the time the father deems is right to release this child into his inheritance. So this speaks to the value of preparation. The value of preparation. God doesn't just release us into full inheritance without process. God has a process of preparation, and there are appointed seasons where He will place us under mentorship, under discipline, under teaching, and sometimes even uncomfortable constraints. And that is not to punish us, but to prepare us. And usually that is where people miss it. That's where we miss it. Because when we are under mentorship and discipline, especially under discipline and teaching, and sometimes the constraints may be uncomfortable, then sometimes we tend to leave before God's timing. And yet, growth requires a season of development, as a process where that potential in you has to be developed. Many believers will resist this season, wanting immediate promotion or recognition. So naturally we resist that. We don't want it. But God is more interested in your formation than your platform. Because the platform may come, but if the platform comes before you are formed, it will result into your destruction. So maturity doesn't come from position, it comes from obedience in private places. Position is not a sign of maturity. Maturity comes when we are obedient in private places. And sometimes God will allow trials to shape our lives. Let's take, for example, Joseph. He had a dream at 17, but it wasn't until he was 30 that he stood before Pharaoh. In between the time he was 17 when he had a dream and when he stood right on that big platform of his dream, there was betrayal, there was servanthood, and there was prison. And that may not look like training, but before the eyes of God, he knew that this boy is destined for something so big, and that is the place he had to train Joseph. So the guardians and stewards of Joseph that shaped his life, his character, was the betrayal, servanthood, and prison. And that resulted in Joseph being built and developed and having a formation that could enable him to be a ruler. So the question always is, are you submitting to the guidance that God has placed in your life? Do you trust God's timing? And sometimes you may feel ready, but are you trusting His timing through the process, the mentorship, the discipline that you are under right now? Lisa Bevere says, God often hides His greatest gifts in seasons of obscurity. God will usually hide his greatest gifts, those greatest talents, those big platforms in seasons when nobody's seeing you, nobody's noticing you. Bishop T.D. Jakes says, preparation is never wasted time. It's God's investment in your future. That's the man of God, T.D. Jakes. He says, preparation, the time that God is preparing you, is never time wasted. It is God's investment in your future. I pray that may God help you to embrace this season that you are in, the season of preparation. May He give you the humility to submit to His process and the patience to wait for His timing. Remember, as I said, Christian growth and maturity are always preceded by a season of training. God bless you so much. I hope you are blessed, and I pray to see you again another time. Bye-bye.